Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as we ask the question, what is the plan these owners of Manchester United have? Or do they even have a plan? We're going to get into that. It is the international break and that's the big show tonight because I really do question what the plan is. I really do question, you know, is Ruben Amorim actually a scapegoat? I mean, there's a story from the ESPN, Rob Dawson tonight talking about how Barada and Wilcox have basically ran a poll amongst the playing squad to see if they back Amorim. Are we not learning anything? And look, this makes me very angry. This makes me very, very angry indeed. United's hierarchy are convinced the squad are behind head coach Ruben Amorim after positive conversations between players and club bosses. Barada and Director of Football Wilcox have also spoken to members of the squad, including Bruno Fernandes and the leadership squad, and are convinced there's continued support for the Portuguese coach. Oh my God, we're still doing that. I'm bloody furious. I'm furious if there's any truth in that at all, that we're actually asking the players what they think about the manager. Whoa, Bruno, can you bring in Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire and Delo? We really want your opinion on this manager. We know you've sacked 3 or 4 before, but what's your opinion? What's your opinion? Absolute nonsense. I think tonight's going to be a cracking show. Also, a couple of other bits I want to talk about as well. Xerxes wanting to leave. There's just a breaking story coming out from someone who's got sources about Mainu wanting to leave. Seem to recall 10 o'clock this morning telling you that Xerxes and Mainu are players that are going to be knocking on the door in January. Had comments going, where's these reports coming from? Where's these reports coming from? I never said they were coming from reports. I said the story this morning because it's our story. Reports from us. If there is somebody, I will tell you, reports from us now being picked up by the mainstream. I told you this on Sunday. I said the Mainu story was going to break, and I said there was another story that was going to break, and there you have it. So, look, these things are happening. Maybe we can delve into that. If we've got time, I want to talk about Paul Scholes saying that he'd like Eddie Howe to be Man United's manager as well. But I really want to delve into the plan because I've been wanting to. I know we did the Bruno show last night, and it was brilliant, and I want it to be driven by you, of course. But I do sort of look at the United situation, and I phrase it as this: what is the plan? What is the plan? If somebody knows what the plan is, you could be the star of the show tonight. You could really be the star of the show. If you know what Ineos's plan is, pray tell us because I want to know. Before we get into all that though, you can see that we're sponsored by Boohoo Man on the show and we've got the winner of the £800 voucher to tell you about as well. So we're sponsored by Boohoo Man tonight. You can still get your 10% off. You can hit boohooman.com. You can use the code Goldbridge, 10% off. That's there. They've got everything you need there. Jumpers, underwear, coats, chill out wear, five-a-side wear, athletic, go to the gym wear. They've got it all at Boohoo Man at very reasonable prices. And if they've got 50% off something, you can still use the code Goldbridge, which will get you another 10% off. So make sure you're checking that out. But listen up, exciting news. We've got a winner of the £800 Boohoo Man voucher, which closed at the end of September. The winner is Ben Roberts. So well done, Ben. Massive congratulations to him. Top effort. You bagged yourself a cracking prize there. £800 voucher to spend. And as it's Boohoo Man, we've got a bit of trivia for you. So can you guess the player? I was born in February '87 in Barcelona. I started my career at Manchester United, making my debut after joining from Barcelona's academy. The club did not pay a fee for me as I was too young to have a professional contract. During my time at Man United, I made 23 appearances, scored 2 goals and was part of the squad that won the Premier League and the Champions League in '08. I was known for my calmness on the ball and confidence playing out from the back, rare for a young defender at the time. And after leaving Man United, I returned to Barcelona in 2008, but I hung up my boots in 2022, ending a legendary career. I was also married to, I've added this one in, I was also married to a very famous Colombian pop star. I think she was Colombian. She still is. She still is. Shakira. Of course it is Gerard Piqué. Don't forget to check out Boohoo Man. Use the code Goldbridge. Thank you very much for them getting involved with the show as always. Okay, I've got a couple of super chats from this morning I need to go back to as well. Well done everybody for getting Piqué. So let's go with this then. So look, I want to start off with this. We've got a few comments coming in already. Oh my God, player power is alive and well. This news has just ruined my birthday month, says Tabiso. And Mike JW says, evening folks, sorry working at the moment, but listening. I said this during the transfer window that they had no plan and set up Amorim to fail. I stand by it. Look, this show tonight we did Bruno last night. Tonight was always going to be what's the plan for Manchester United. I feel that there is so much focus from the media, from you, from me, about Ruben Amorim. And actually, this was always a show we were going to do in the international break because there are no fixtures. There are no transfers. So all you're going to get is clarity. I thought the conversation about Bruno last night was fantastic. It was fair and it was, well, constructed. I want this one to be the same. What is the plan at Manchester United? Tom McBride says, I believe Ineos' plan is to get the new ground built. As soon as that happens, it will hold many events and become like another AO Arena. I think this is the long-term plan to get millions in. I think you're absolutely spot on there, Tom. But I also think that Ruben Amorim is just a pawn in a game of chess. I really do think that he is just something to deflect. Amorim. And the media are short-sighted and always will be. They just want another manager sacked so they can go around the cycle. I have no trust in them. But honestly, Ruben Amorim has responsibilities. Of course he does. But what is the plan from the people running the football club? I think they're bloody clueless. And if you're tuning in a little bit late, Rob Dawson's a decent journalist at the ESPN. And he's not the sort of person who's just going to make something up. So when this is coming out tonight, that the hierarchy are convinced that the squad are behind the head coach and that Barada and Wilcox have spoken to members of the squad, including Bruno Fernandes in the leadership group, and they're convinced that the continued support for the coach. This terrifies the shit out of me. I mean, who is Omar Barada? Who is Jason Wilcox? Who is Sir Jim Radcliffe? And where's your bloody research and what is your plan? For the love of God, start speaking to the fans. There's a fan forum. There are fan groups. Speak to them. Do not speak to Bruno Fernandes and the leadership team about what they think about a manager. It's absolutely thick. It is stupid. It is absolutely insane. These players are not Man United fans. They are here. They earn money. They're professionals. That's the end. Do not ask them for their opinion about what the manager should do. Why are you asking the employee about the boss? Why? Who does that? That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And we've done it before. Jose Mourinho lost his job because Ed Woodward spoke to Paul Pogba and co. Mourinho got stabbed in the back and he got overruled. And that was by the players and that was by the board. Why would you do that again? Why would you do that? Why would you talk to serial failures as well? Why would you even listen? Why would you go to a serving Man United player from that leadership team and listen to anything they've got to say? Why? And this is what scares me about this football club. There seems to be no plan. There seems to be no experience. And there seems to be no clue about how to run a football club. You do not go and ask players that finished 15th, blew a Europa League final and played shit against Brentford a week ago what they think about the manager. Because what if those players say, the problem is the manager. Yeah, it is the manager, his system, his formation. We've had enough of it. And then Barada and Wilcox go and speak to Sir Jim and go, yeah, the players, they don't fancy him. Okay, at the end of the day, let's sack him. What type of idiot, I mean, class A idiot, to speak to the players about the manager? It opens up the door to fear for the fan base because you go, if they are asking the players for their thoughts on the manager, they're instantly undermining the manager. If I'm Ruben Amorim reading that, and I think that Wilcox and Barada have spoken to Bruno and co, I'm like, sack me. Just fucking sack me because I'm not walking. I'm not walking, but we're never going to get on. So you may as well sack me because if you're going to my players behind my back to ask them about me, you can go fuck yourself, mate. Omar, you can go fuck yourself. If you are going behind my back to speak to my players, asking them what they think about me, one, you're backstabbing me, and two, you're trying to get my players to do it as well. You are burning the bridges of trust all over the place. My trust in you, my players' trust in you, my players' trust in me. It's absolute stupidity in any organisation to do stuff like that. So I would hope it's not true, but why would you write it if it's not true? Why would you? And also, this club have done this many times before. So I find it disgusting. I find it concerning. And also, if I was the CEO or I was Jason Wilcox, I would have a brain in between my ears where I watch Man United lose to Brentford and I would realise that These players the week before turned up against Chelsea. These players turned up against Arsenal. These players turned up against Burnley. These players haven't turned up now. What's the correlation between players turning up one week and not turning up the next week and the manager? There isn't one. They're light switch players. They've already proven that. They've already proven that they can turn up against Arsenal, that they can turn up against Chelsea, that they can turn up against Sunderland, but they can't turn up against bloody Man City, and they can't turn up against Brentford. That's not a manager issue, that's a player issue. So why the hell, if I was the CEO or the director of football, would I ask the players what they think about the player? Especially in light of what Gary Neville said on Sunday, that they're blame shifters. Why would you ask somebody that blames others what their opinion is on someone they can blame? Madness, absolute madness. And this feeds into sort of what I want to talk about anyway. What is the plan at Manchester United? Like, seriously, I mean, that worries me. I mean, on a very basic level, because Bruno's named in it, why the fuck would I ask Bruno Fernandes what he thinks about a current serving manager? I'd be more interested in why you're here. Like, why aren't you playing well? Do you want to go to Saudi? Like, why is it you don't play well every week? I'd be more interested in that. But in relation to the actual plan, what is the plan? The plan at Nice was shit and hasn't worked. What's the plan at Manchester United? What is it you want to achieve? Because I find it incredible that here we are, waiting to beat or lose to Liverpool, waiting to beat or lose to Brighton to find out whether we're backing the manager or sacking the manager. Let's be honest, the only constant around this fan base at the moment is what's the next result? If we lose badly, Amorim out. If we win, let him stay. Brighton, if we lose, Amorim out. If he wins, stay. We all know this is thin ice and it's just going to... That's the plan, isn't it? There is no bigger plan in the fan base at the moment. It's like, what's the last result? Do we back the manager or do we sack the manager? And that's all that's going on. What is it? What is Ineos's plan? What is the Glazers' plan? Because they don't have one. I look at Newcastle. I know the plan. I'm not a Newcastle fan. Newcastle want to be in the Champions League every year and they want to get to the place where Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool are. That's very, very obvious. Chelsea want to win the league and win the Champions League as quick as possible. Arsenal want to win the league and the Champions League. Liverpool want to retain the league and win the Champions League again. Man City want to get back to the top. Spurs want to be a top 4 club every week. So that's the top 6 straight away. I know all of their aims. Bournemouth want to go as high as they can. They've already got a nosebleed. Crystal Palace want to go as high as they can. Everton want to be a top half of the table team instead of down near the bottom. Leeds and the newly promoted teams, Burnley, etc., Sunderland, they want to stay up. You know, Forest want to try and replicate what they did last year under Nuno. So I can understand everybody's strategy. I understand. Manchester United's strategy, I don't know what it is. Which is amazing when you consider we've got 18 months of a new ownership, effectively. What is their strategy? What is their plan? If their strategy and plan is to get us into the top 4, why didn't you buy a midfielder? Because you couldn't afford it? If you couldn't afford a midfielder, why did you bother buying into Man United anyway? You know, when you were doing your due diligence, did somebody not tell you the club's in £800 million of debt and hasn't got any money? Why did you buy into it if you don't have the money to buy what's needed? Why did you bring Ruben Amorim in and then not get him the players that he needed? Why didn't you buy a midfielder? Why did a goalkeeper not come until the last day? Why didn't you buy a right wing back? Why did you keep Bruno? Why did you spend all your money on 2 attackers? What is it you're trying to achieve this season? All these things are massively more relevant than sack Amorim if he loses to Sunderland. And this is what I mean. I want to be entertained, but I want to be educated by the people in this chat or people who aren't watching live. Pray tell me what the bloody plan is at Man United and why we're locked in to yet another secular insanity of when's the manager going to get sacked. He is a bloody scapegoat, pure and simple. Because while everyone's talking about the manager, they're not talking about the players and they're not talking about the ownership. And why is it that every bloody Premier League club, I know exactly what they're trying to achieve, but my club haven't got a bloody clue what it is we're trying to achieve other than survive week to week? Nobody at Man United has said anything about whether we're trying to win the league, whether we're trying to finish in the top 10, whether we're trying to win a trophy, whether we want to be in the Europa League, the Champions League, the Conference League. What are we trying to do next season? Are we trying to win the league in the next 3 years? What is it that they're actually doing? And actually, whether you want to finish in the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League, win the FA Cup or finish in the top 8, why didn't you buy players to make that happen? Why didn't you? Because you got no money? I mean, what are we literally doing here? Are we taking a piss on a windy day and hoping it doesn't blow back on us? I mean, what is it we're trying to achieve? Because there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing about it. And it's scary. It's really, really scary because whether you back Amorim and you want him to do well like I do, I know he's not got the backing he needs. Whether he's going to get sacked and another manager comes in, will the next manager get it? What is the strategy? It's like I said this morning, the bomb squad. What a load of crap. They weren't even in the final of the Europa League. Most of them weren't even here last season. And all I heard all summer was, yeah, we're doing a great job. Yeah. You're not coming on tour. Anthony, you're not coming on tour. Sancho, you're not going on tour. Rashford, you're not going on tour. Garnacho, you're not going on tour. And Malacia, you're not going on tour. You'll pay for what you did last season. Anthony, wait a minute. Why have you all got your hands up? Well, basically, I was at Betis when you finished 15th. It was nothing to do with me. Yeah, Rashford, I was at Aston Villa from Christmas. Nothing to do with me. Sancho, I wasn't here all year. I wouldn't have turned up, but I wasn't here all year. Malacia, I was at PSV. Garnacho, I was here, but I didn't play in the Europa League final. Yeah, well, just shut up. You're not going on tour. You're all getting the blame. You're the problem. You're the problem. Why have you got your hand up again, Rashford? Because I'm just reading out. Can I just read out the team from the Europa League final? None of us were in it. Only one of us was in the squad. Why are you selling us as the problem? Because, and that's the plan, right? That's the plan. That's the real quiz. And I think, you know, I was having this conversation. I'm not going to divulge who it was. They may have said it. I don't know. They were saying we should do a conversation about how good Man United have been in the transfer window. I was like, whoa, what? And they were basically saying, no, I think Man United have done really well in the transfer window. Yoro's a good signing. Mazraoui's a good signing. De Ligt's a good signing. Obviously, Mbeumo's a good signing. Cunha's a good signing. Sesko's a good signing. Lemens is a good signing. So I was saying, so wait a minute. We're basically saying Ineos have done a good job. Well, there's some things they haven't done well, but I do like some of their signings. I went, hold on a minute. Okay, let me just play the other side. Lemens came in on the last day. We needed a goalkeeper on the first day. Why did he come in on the last day? A good signing, but why was it a last-minute signing? And Mbeumo, we paid too much for, and we took 6 weeks to do it. Xerxes was 5th choice. I like all these players, by the way. I'm not slagging the players off. What I'm saying is, let's not pretend like Ineos had a fucking plan. Cunha, I'll accept. Good signing. They got it done early. Sesko was 5th choice and late. And Mbeumo took bloody ages and we paid exactly what Brentford wanted. Lemens came in on the last day. They're good signings, but let's not pretend that the strategy behind it was like a star. So, look, I don't get what the plan is my honest answer to the question. And I do think that for some reason, you know what? I'm having a bit of a rant here because I'm not happy about this player thing if it's true. But I've seen certain United fans and ex-players over the last 48 hours. And I find this embarrassing, right? I find this really embarrassing. And you know me, I'm at the front of the queue to criticise the media. Absolutely front of the queue. But I've seen people, and some of you may have done it as well, and they've been going, why is it the media are always against us? Why are the media always against Manchester United? And yet they're not against Liverpool. You know, they're always against Man United. Why have we got this media bias against Manchester United? And I'm just like, this is so bloody embarrassing. What are we even bloody talking about? The last time I checked, Liverpool were the champions of England and 1 point off the top. The last time I checked, we were 15th last season and we're 10th now. What are we bloody talking about, media bias? There is no bloody media bias. We're under pressure because we're shit. There is no media bias. Liverpool and us are not the same. And I'm tired of this excuse culture. If we were the same and the media were on our back and they were kissing Liverpool's arse, I completely utterly understand it. But why are we getting violins out? We're not Liverpool. I wish we bloody were, but we're not. And how the media treat Liverpool is probably different to how they treat us, because with Liverpool, you can sell the positive and you can get the clicks. But with Man United, we're shit. And the only way they're going to get the clicks with us is by being negative. But what really annoys me about the media is, all they ever bloody talk about with their pile-on is the manager. There is no interest at all in what has been a bloody nightmare. A nightmare takeover partnership between the Glazers and Ineos. There is no scrutiny of it at all. Absolutely none. And knowing the British media like I do, it's probably because we've got a British owner. We've seen this for a long time. We've seen it with the way that Luke Shaw gets treated, comparable to Luke Shaw didn't play for Man United 4 months before the Euros and 4 months after, but played in the final of the Euros for England. You know, wasn't fit for 4 months before the tournament and wasn't fit for 4 months after the tournament, but went to the tournament. Nobody said a bloody word. The fans did. The media never said a bloody word. If that had been Paul Pogba, oh my God. Imagine if Paul Pogba hadn't played for Man United for 4 months, went to the World Cup with France, played in the World Cup for France, then didn't play for 4 months after. He would be the biggest shithouse in shithouse history. He would be absolutely balled out for it. But because he's not, because Luke Shaw's British, the media don't give a shit about that. And I think there's an element of that with the ownership. If we had, if somebody like the bloody Elliott Group, whoever it was, who were interested in bailing the Glazers out, if they'd bailed the Glazers out and had the last 18 months that we've had, the media would be going mad. But because it's Sir Jim Radcliffe and he's British, they never write about it. Oh no, Amorim's got a foreign passport. Let's pin it all on him. Let's write about Amorim every single bloody day. There is never anything about Sir Jim Radcliffe. There is never anything about Ineos. There is never anything about the Glazers. And any Man United fan worth their salt knows full well that shit rolls downhill. Every football fan knows that if an owner decides, I'm not happy with this, they change it. So if you're not happy with a under 30% win ratio, that's fine. But if you've got owners that give a shit about football, he wouldn't be here anyway. And if we've got one of the most embarrassing midfields in the Premier League, if we've got owners that realise that, we don't have the most embarrassing midfield in the Premier League. And when I say that, what I mean is we want to be in the top 4. We don't even have a midfield that's in the top 8 in the Premier League. So all these deficiencies, whether it's win ratios, midfields, etc., they all come down to the ownership. It's a bloody mess. And I go back to it. And look, I've been holding on to this for a while. I'm sure many of you have been holding on to it a while. I know there's a lot of people putting their comments in. But it's really difficult to have this conversation when you're losing to Brentford and people are saying get the manager out. But in an international break, when there is no games to distract, it's the perfect time to say, it's a bloody mess. It's a bloody mess dictated to by the ownership, and they've got no plan. They've got no clue. So I do say to you, with full conviction, there is no plan, and Ruben Amorim is just a distraction for owners who haven't got a bloody clue. And I throw it out there in the quest for an answer and in the hope that they do display a plan, but I haven't got a bloody clue what the plan is. And the funny thing is, we were doing this show anyway before it dropped out that Omar Barada and Wilcox have been talking to the players about what they think about Amorim, according to Rob Dawson in the ESPN. And that, to me, puts a cherry on the top of what the bloody show was planned to be anyway. I mean, if we've got a board that's asking shit players what they think about a manager again, we may as well go back to 2016. Because this is exactly what did for Mourinho. Why do you empower weak-minded players to ask them about a manager? I find it absolutely detestful and crazy. I really, really do. I want to get into your comments, though, because I've had a right old moan there, haven't I? Well, it's not even a moan. I posed the question, what is the plan at Manchester United? I really, really do. It's like the owners bought in a manager who only plays one system, set him up to fail and sit back whilst the media fans forget about the ownership. And this is, I don't know, look, again, I pose a question there, Cyber, with your super chat. It's a very good one. What is it about Manchester United's ownership that doesn't get scrutinised when all I can see is an absolute shit show? And look, you're sort of goading them in a way. You're sort of going, you know, the last 18 months have been worse than what it was like with the Glazers. You're absolutely terrible at your jobs. I understand, look, if you want to talk about Amorim for a minute, I understand the Amorim out as saying Amorim out. I get it. You know, I completely understand why you might think it. You know, we're not blind to it, even though I don't want it to happen. I'm not blind to the fact that, you know, there's compelling evidence. I mean, even the thing I said yesterday morning, how is it that every game we've won in the last 8 months has been against 10 men, newly promoted teams or relegated teams? That's bloody shocking. That's shocking. So newly promoted teams or relegated teams is going to be 3 out of 20. So basically, yeah, it's not a great stat, is it? But even if you want Amorim out, you categorically have to still bring it back to the ownership, because even if you want Amorim out, who are the people who have got to sack him? And those people are the people I'm talking about and everyone else is talking about, because they're not going to sack him, because if they sack him, I'm already saying, and many of you are already saying, they're incompetent, clueless, and don't have a clue what they're doing. If they sack Amorim, that's even worse. Like, I already think there is no plan and they don't know what they're doing. Now, I think that. Today, I think that, right? If they sack Amorim, they're even worse, because Amorim's their guy and they've given him £200 million and it's been an absolute rip-roaring disaster. So if they're already clueless, incompetent, and no one knows what their idea is today, if they sack Amorim tomorrow, that makes them even worse. So, you know, even if you Amorim out, like, they might not do it for that reason as well, because it makes them look even bloody worse, you know? I'm not Amorim in or out, but letting players decide if they like him or not says it all. We've seen this story before, the same cycle continues. The culture won't change under these owners. Hashtag cost cutting, says John. I tell you what, if I was Manchester United tonight, and they won't bloody listen because they think they know best, I'm telling you now, that story that's out there from Rob Dawson in the ESPN, which I've got no reason not to believe, if I'm Man United tonight, I'm out there right now dispelling that story. I'm killing that story dead, because I tell you what, that is going to be it's going to be petrol on the fire. To every Man United fan, that's going to be petrol on the fire. There's not going to be one Man United fan out there that goes, you know what, I think that's a great strategy. You know, we've had a bad CEO in Woodward. We had a bad CEO in Arnold. At least Barada knows what he's doing. There's a problem in the football club and he's asking the players what they think about the manager. No one's going to go, that's a good idea. Look, I like Mbermo. I don't want to know what Mbermo thinks about the manager. You know, I don't. I really, really don't. It's not the players' place. If you're asking players what they think about a manager, you're basically asking a turkey if they want to cancel Christmas. Of course they bloody do, because they'll survive. And we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be doing that. So I hope the club comes out and says that's a load of bollocks, because it's massively damaging if it's not. It's massively damaging. And if it's true, and Sir Jim Radcliffe thinks that's a good idea, you not only have you made loads and loads of mistakes, you've recruited the wrong sporting director and the wrong CEO as well. It's insane, says Shahin. Amorim is to Ineos, is what Ineos is to the Glazers, a shield to protect them from their mistakes, says Krishna. Politely, Mark, it doesn't matter that Sesko was 5th choice. The first choice was Liam Delap, and Sesko is far better. Delap was first because he was cheaper, says Tom. Politely, Tom, you've completely missed the point, which some people will do because they don't listen. The point was, have Ineos recruited well since they came into the club? The answer is no. The answer is no, because recruitment is not luck. Recruitment is strategy. Sesko, I would take over Delap, 100%, and Delap was the #1 choice. Sesko was 5th choice. I'm very happy with Sesko. I'm very happy with Lemens. I'm very happy with Mbermo. It's nothing against the players, But let's not pretend Ineos's strategy got us those players. They stumbled onto Sesko because they didn't get Delap, they didn't get Gyökeres, they didn't get Ekitike, and they didn't get Watkins. If one of those deals had been done, Sesko wouldn't be a United player. If Delap had chose us, we never would have got Sesko. If Gyökeres had chose us, we never would have got Sesko. If Ekitike had chose us, we never would have got Sesko. And if Watkins had chose us, we never would have got Sesko. My point is, I'm very, very happy with Sesko. This is not a judgment on Sesko. The scary thing is, people think Ineos are good at transfers when they stumble on good players. I'm very happy that we messed up 4 deals to get to Sesko. Because I wouldn't want Watkins over Sesko now. I wouldn't want Delap over Sesko. I'm very happy with him. But let's not pretend like Ineos went, Sesko's the guy we want, let's go and get him. Favel's the guy that went for Sesko, if you want the total truth. I mean, I don't know who. Maybe it was Amorim. Maybe it was Wilcox. Maybe it was Barada. Maybe it was all of them. There was definite resistance to Sesko. It was Favel who basically put his reputation on the line and said we should go for him. And I agree with BHTG. With Sesko, we had no choice. It was the last one. It was the last one really out there. And you know, we definitely got the right guy. But let's not pretend it's based on good recruitment. Nick P says, we'll say it again. There's no one voice behind the scenes driving the car. There's separate agendas that's reflected on the pitch. Every man for himself, from Glazers to Ratcliffe to Bruno and the rest. But also as well, I mean, look, we're sort of dwelling on a story that we're hoping isn't true. But if I'm running Man United as a CEO or director of football or as an owner, and my manager's not performing, and I go behind the manager's back and say, Bruno, get the leadership team together. What we thinking about the manager, Bruno? You all like him? Good. Because I don't want to sack him because my reputation's on the line here. But you know what? I do respect your opinion. So you're all backing him as well. Great. Yeah. The players are all backing him. We've spoke to him. You're still going behind the players. You're still going behind their back. You're still going behind the manager's back. You're still undermining him. If I was Amorim, I'd be bloody fuming. But more importantly, what you're also doing is empowering those players. A week ago, you lost to Brentford because you're shit. A week later, the CEO and the director of football are asking you for your opinion on the future of the club. They should still be sore from a bollocking they got for what happened against Brentford. But no, you're empowering them going, what do you think about the manager? I mean, we talk about the toxicity and the inconsistency at Manchester United. And the logical conclusion is we overpower our players. We give them too much of a voice. We make them feel too important. I remember Paul Ince being on the United stand a few years ago and talking about this exact thing. I can't remember who the manager was when we had Ince on. Maybe it was Ollie. I think it was Ollie. I don't think it was Ten Hag. Maybe it was Ten Hag. But there was a story that came out and we were talking about it on the United stand about players going behind the manager's back to speak to the board about their concerns. And I remember asking Paul Ince about it and saying, under Sir Alex Ferguson, would that ever happen? He went, no. No one would bloody dare do it. Everyone respected him too much to do it. And if you did do it, the board would tell Sir Alex you'd done it and you'd be out the club. Why can't we learn from what made us successful? We beat Everton 4-0 in December. That stat is wrong, says Jensen. Jensen, again, I don't know what it is about people tonight. And you know me, I don't like proving people wrong. But you didn't listen, did you? Again, your fingers have run away before your brain. Manchester United, in the last 8 months, have only beaten teams that are down to 10 men, newly promoted, or relegated teams. Jensen, how long ago was last December? Was it in the last 8 months? I'll leave you with that one. You can figure it out. Stay relevant and manipulate fans in their cycle, says JB. Thank you very much for that. Hi, Mark. To play devil's advocate, Ineos gave Ruben £270 million. Ruben kept Bruno, and if his dream Valverde-type midfielder isn't realistic, he needs to adapt, says Alvin. Alvin, again, I mean, there's a hat trick tonight. We've had Tom, we've had Jensen, and now we've got Alvin who's not listening as well. So Alvin is in the school where I think some of you are, where you think that Ineos have backed Ruben Amorim because they've given him £270 million. Okay. Please do a little bit of research. There is no veto for Ruben Amorim. There is no definitive decision from Ruben Amorim. If Ruben Amorim says, I want to sell Bruno, he can't do it without the board agreeing. If Ruben says, I want to keep Bruno, he can't do it if the board don't want to do it. So straight away, you're wrong on that, because there is no veto for Ruben Amorim like there was for Ten Hag. So the club might have said to Ten Hag, we don't want De Gea to go and we don't want Onana, and Ten Hag could say, well, it's happening. Ruben Amorim doesn't have that. So you can't say Ruben kept Bruno and wanted an unobtainable midfielder. Ruben Amorim also wanted Baleba, and the club didn't get him for him. So I don't know where you're getting Valverde from. And also, Ineos gave Ruben £270 million. Where are we getting £270 million from? Where are we getting £270 million from? We spent about 200 in the summer. And Dorgu didn't cost 50 million. So I don't know where we're getting 270 million pounds from. But also, let's pretend, Alvin, that it was 270 million pounds. When Erik Ten Hag got sacked, there was a United Stand show where there was a big poll on how much money do we think is needed to get Man United back in the top 4. And the vote was overwhelmingly minimum of 500 million. So even if he has had 270 million pounds, that's not even half what's needed. So Alvin, Ruben Amorim doesn't have a veto, and if you think he spent 270 million pounds, you need to get a calculator. And point 3, even if he has, that's not even half of what's required. And where's the bloody midfield? Like, when we're asking for a plan of what the plan is at Manchester United, there are so many things I would love to know. I would love to know what it is we're trying to achieve. It is so bloody vague, they may as well be politicians. What is it you want to achieve with Manchester United? Wow, at the end of the day, we want to be the biggest club in the world. When? What does that mean, and when? Well, at the end of the day, we're Manchester United, and we want to be one. We want to make Manchester United great again. We want to put Manchester back into Manchester United. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, it means what it means. We're a big club with a big fan base, and we deserve to be at the top table of football. And what does that mean? Well, and when is it going to happen? Well, at the end of the day, no, not at the end of the day. Now, what is it we're trying to achieve? When are we going to achieve it? And how long is it going to take to achieve it, please? Well, at the end of the day, no, you don't know, do you? You actually just don't know. And I know what Bournemouth want to do. I know what Everton want to do. I know what Fulham want to do. Why don't I know what my club wants to do? Why can't you tell me what it is you're trying to do? Is it because you're scared? Is it because if you say we want top 5 this year, you're scared it won't happen? What about next year? Are we going to be in the Champions League the season after this? Why won't you tell us then? Why can't we be in the Champions League in the next 2 years? Because you're scared that won't happen? Why are you so bad as owners that you don't even trust yourselves to say our plan is to be in the Champions League in the next 2 years? Our plan is to win the league in the next 5 years. Why can't you even say that? And also, if your plan is to be in the Champions League, or your plan is to be in the Premier League, winning the Premier League, why didn't you buy a midfielder in the summer? Everybody knows our midfield's not very good. Why didn't you do it? Is that because you've got no money? Because if you've got no money, is that why you're not telling us what the plan is? Is your plan broken? Is that what the truth is? Is your plan flawed? Is your plan actually get the regeneration project done and we'll be rich in 5 years' time, and to hell with what the football team does? What is your plan? Because all I can see is this constant pile-on of the manager, who has to take responsibility, but ultimately there's a shitload of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not even aware of that is causing him problems. And even if we sack Amorim and bring a new manager in, why the hell would I have any faith that the new manager is going to get the backing that you didn't give to this guy? What is your plan? When is it going to happen? And why isn't it happening? And we won't get it. We won't get it. You know what? People talk about why aren't there any protests? Why is the club in the worst position it's ever been in and everybody's so quiet? Probably because the Glazers and Ineos are playing an absolute blinder of setting absolute... You cannot be protested out, booted out, blamed or spoken about if you never say anything. You can't. You can't be cancelled if you don't say anything. You know, you can't be spoken about if you don't say anything. They're purposely, in my opinion, not setting any targets. They're purposely not saying anything. Barada, Wilcox rarely speak. Sir Jim Radcliffe rarely speaks. It's radio silence. And you know the person who speaks first, they're the person who gets the blame. Well, Ruben Amorim contractually is obliged to speak once a week. And that is why he gets the blame for everything, because he's the only visible presence around Manchester United in front of a fan base and a media that is hungry for blood. Because United aren't doing very well and people want someone to blame. And the only visible presence is the manager and the players. And they're just out of sight. And they refuse to set any targets. And it's a very, very clever tactic, because if it all goes to shit, the only identifiable fact is that Ruben Amorim is the manager. So if it comes to sacking him, they can step in and go, we've sacked him, we've made action. There is absolutely zero plan that is being fed to any of us. Zero. Plan is to stall us until the new stadium is built, says Jacob. The plan, Operation Polish a Turd, says Keel. Mark, their plan is to bullshit us every time, says Eddie. Ghost92 says, if it's true about speaking to the players behind Amorim's back, it's an absolute disgrace. It's basically creating a lot of tension in the dressing room, which will affect performances. Mike JW says, you don't go around and ask someone for their opinion on their boss or their decision making. How desperate do they look, says Mike. Emily Derry says, they talk to the players because they don't value the input of the fans. Never mind the agendas those players may have. Let me just get rid of... Jake says, your toxicity is baffling. You've got no idea. I'd love to hear... Actually, Jake, I'd love to hear more from you, because I'd love to know what's toxic about asking why the football club that we all support and we all love, that finished 15th last year and is in 10th now, why is that toxic to ask those questions about what the plan is from the people who actually run the club? Why is that toxic? Toxicity to me is Man United in a title race and still moaning. Toxicity to me is what I see with some Arsenal fans who have wanted Arteta out for years, even though he's building something and getting closer and closer to winning something. That's toxic, because there's a defined plan and there's clear progress. Might not be as quick as what people want, but there is clear progress. I don't think toxicity is calling out somebody. So basically, if you were at hospital and somebody you loved was getting worse and worse and worse, and the doctors didn't seem to be doing anything, you're toxic if you call out and say, why are they getting worse? Why aren't you making them better? Why aren't they giving any medicine? Why isn't there a strategy to make them better? Why won't you tell us what the story is? And that's the perfect analogy of Man United. We're a sick patient in hospital who seems to be getting worse. And we've been in hospital for a long time. And I'm looking at the doctors and I'm going, why won't you tell us what's wrong with them? And why haven't you got a strategy to fix it? And if it's terminal, why won't you bloody tell us? You know, that is not toxic, Jake, to be asking why we're not getting the answers at all. Evan, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thanks for getting your badge in. Tom's back again. He says, I believe Ineos plan to get the new ground built. As soon as that happens, it will hold. I've done that one, haven't I, from Tom. Mike JW, have done that. Oh, my God. Player power is alive and well, says Tab. This news is just... I've done that one. And my biggest fear about Amorim, says Rex, being sacked, is that he gets sacked, then goes across the city, gets fully funded and balls all over the Premier League. Imagine that. Imagine that. I mean, what, goes to Man City? I mean, I don't know whether they'd go anywhere near him now, to be honest, but, you know. The game is the game, says, what's the power structure at the minute? Could Glazers go over Sir Jim and sack Amorim anyway, or does Ineos have total say on all football? The game is the game. I mean, great question. Great question. I was told in the summer by a couple of very prominent journalists that no signing happens without Joel Glazer signing it off, because they own the club and they write the checks. I don't know. I mean, if you sack the manager, I presume Joel Glazer has to say it's okay. I presume. Yeah. Umpa Lumpa says, you clearly don't understand running a business. Look, the United Stand is the biggest and best football community in the world. I understand some of you are very bitter about that. But I spend an hour every 8 o'clock show explaining and talking and discussing my opinion. You're giving me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. You clearly don't understand the running of a business. 5 people have liked it, so there's 5 idiots with you. What are you talking about? What is it we don't understand about business? I tell you what, I don't want to understand business because Man United's not a fucking business, mate. It's a football club. The big problem we have is people treat it like a fucking business. We're a football club. You don't buy a football club to make money. It's the oldest bloody adage in the world. You don't buy a football club to make money. And there you are, wandering in your stupid boots going, you clearly don't understand running a business. No, I do understand how to run a business, thank you very much. I've done very, very well running businesses. But football is a fucking entertainment sport, mate. This is the big problem at Man United. You get you walking in your stupid boots going, you don't know how to run a business. This is the problem Man United fans have. We don't want to be run like a bloody business. We don't want to be run for profit. We don't want people buying into the club to make profit off us. We're a bloody football club. Football clubs throughout history have always been a plaything for rich people. You buy a football club because you want it to win. You don't buy a football club to run it like a bloody business. That's the whole problem. So thank you for walking in and actually making this show so much easier. Because I don't want to understand what Ineos or the Glazers are doing running my club as a bloody business. Because most football clubs that are successful, probably all football clubs that are successful, don't run for profit. You don't buy a football club to make money. You buy a football club because you want it to be successful and you care about it. So you clearly don't understand running a business. Also, if you look at Man United like a bloody business, I wouldn't say it's a very good business at the moment because we're not in Europe, which would be earning us £100 million a year. We're not high up in the league, which earns us more money. We don't make much profit from sales and we overspend on people. So basically, if I was a pub, I don't get much custom. I overpay for my ingredients. Nobody buys my fucking ingredients. So even from a business point of view, we're not actually doing that well either. Crap owner's going to crap own. Amorim set up to fail, says Isaac. What's the power structure? I've done that one from the game is the game. Mark, can you not go speak to the club on behalf of the fans? Sit down with Jim and the Glazers. I would pay to see that. They don't like us, Pete. And I don't like them. They don't like us, and I don't like them. Where Man United go wrong is they think that the fans have to please them to talk to them. What they don't realise is they might not like the fans, but I dislike them more because of what they've done to the football club. So, you know what? I don't give a shit about speaking to Jim Radcliffe or Joel Glazer. They should be speaking to fans. 100% they should be speaking to fans. I wish they did, and I wish they listened to fans, but they don't. But what they don't realise is you're not Lord of the Manor. You've ruined our football club. Emily Derry says, Mark has said it many times, these owners don't want to know what anyone else thinks outside of a tiny bubble of their creation. They're terrified of the criticism they would receive. Speaking to players and asking players what they think is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. You know, it's mad. I can't even imagine when this football club was good. I can't imagine the board in 1994 going behind Sir Alex Ferguson's back to ask Mark Hughes and Eric Cantona what they think about the manager. I can't imagine in 99, you know, the team going behind the manager's back to speak to Roy Keane and David Beckham about what they think about Sir Alex. I can't imagine in 08 they were doing it to Vidic and Rio. What do you think about Sir Alex? It's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. And we talk about player power, and the scariest thing is about player power only exists if there's a club that nurtures it. And if it's true what Rob Dawson's saying, then we know why has that never been said before? People moan about player power. It can only exist if there's a board willing to let the player power destroy the manager. And, you know, very little has changed from before, except that now the Glazers have an accomplice and a front to their crimes. Ineptios are Glazer puppets, says Andy F. A good transfer window is Cunha, Mbeumo, Sesko, Lamens before Arsenal game. 1 centre midfield, 1 back, and take 90 million for Bruno, says Desiree. And I've just realised Umpa Lumpa is a is actually a rage baiter. I actually thought you were a genuine person. I apologise for wasting my time, because their other comment was the Glazers aren't the problem, they've spent billions. Margot says, run away with me and I'll get rid of the Glazers. And Mount Rushmore says, completely agree, Mark. Our owners don't see us as a club and a badge. They see us as a business and a logo. The millionaire doesn't understand business, says Enjoy Life. And crap owners gonna crap own, says Isaac Case. After show to lower our blood pressure, says JB. I'll do a bit of an after show, yeah. I'm getting rage baited by idiots, Cappy, I am. Just to move away, because this show might be something we revisit later in the week, because it's flown by. But I just want to big up the community here and just change tact for a minute. If you watch the morning show every morning at 10 o'clock, and obviously we have the 8 o'clock and the 2 o'clock show, you'd know this already. But this morning, the show was basically around people who are going to be knocking on doors for January. And we mentioned the Xerxes and Mainu. Well, I actually mentioned Mainu on Sunday. Xerxes we mentioned this morning. And I said reports, right? And some clever dick in the chat was like, where are these reports coming from? They're being made up. And if you've been watching the channel for the last 6 or 7 months, there's been a lot of things we've been told that have been correct. If it's from a source, I'll tell you the source. If it's reports, it's what we're hearing. This afternoon, Daily Mail, Chris Wheeler, Nathan Salt, Xerxes not happy. I'll read it out. So we had this before them, but this is what they're saying. Xerxes' frustration with his current situation at United has reached the point where he's looking for an exit in January. So that was a few hours after our show. And obviously, Mainu, I've seen it tonight, people talking about it. We mentioned it on Sunday, we mentioned it this morning. These things are going to happen. Like whether people like it or not, these things are going to happen. Whether the club are going to let them go, whether Amorim's going to change tact and give them minutes before January, we'll have to wait and see. But look, there's a lot of change that needs to happen at Manchester United. I just want to see a plan. Like I said when that Christmas Eve, I mean, look, you know what? I'll never move past this. I'll never move past this. After show time, right? Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Brilliant show tonight. Boohoo Man 10% off with the code Goldbridge. So we're into after show territory because this is a little bit like off topic a little bit. So it's Christmas Eve 2023, which is not even 2 years ago now. 2023 Christmas Eve. I'm going up to Nottingham to spend it with my sister, which we don't do very often. Packed the car up at about 1 o'clock. I'd done the morning show. We're finished. You know, I'm not doing a Christmas Eve show live, and I don't do a show on Christmas Day. So the car's packed up, presents, food, toiletries, whatever. By 1:30, we're heading out to the M6. Slade's on the radio. Are you hanging up your stocking on the wall? We're having a right good laugh, right? Anyway, traffic's not too bad. Pull up about 3:30 at my sister's house. Brother-in-law comes out to help us unload the car. He says, you going live then? I went, no, I'm finished this morning. He says, no, you've not heard it, have you? I said, I've been driving. You know, I haven't looked at my phone. Yeah, you might want to look at your phone. Looked at my phone. Sir Jim Radcliffe is the new official partial owner of Manchester United. 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve, Manchester United decide to announce that the deal with Sir Jim Radcliffe is official. I mean, for some of you who don't celebrate Christmas, that's absolutely fine. But it's 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Most people who celebrate Christmas at 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve have switched off. They've switched off. It's not the time to be going live. It's not the time to be talking about Man United's ownership. That's how little this club thinks about Manchester United. And also, I know people who worked at the club at the time, and they were like, we couldn't fucking believe it. You know, we work hard all year, all hours, and they decide to put that out on Christmas Eve at 4 o'clock. That's how little the Glazers think of their own employees and their own fans, that they announce that at 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. But when I did that live stream, and it's there somewhere, I had to run upstairs into my nephew's bedroom, who was about 17, because he played a lot of FIFA and stuff, so I knew he had good internet, and just put the phone up and we went live with I think I had a can of Carling, talking about that on Christmas Eve. And I said at the time, we've lost. those of us who wanted the Glazers out have lost. And the one thing about me is that I can get very, very passionate. I can swear. I wish I didn't, but it's me. I get very, very passionate about things I care about. But when I've lost or I'm proven wrong, I will 100% go, look, there's no point. I ain't going to moan and scream and shout. Look, there's people I think I don't like, and then I've met them and gone, to be fair, it's only based on the perception of you. I never judge somebody until I meet them. And there's plenty of people that, you know, I've had arguments with online, and then when I've met them, I get on with them. Like True Geordie and Loz, I used to rip the piss out of them. They asked me to go on the show. We met and we got on really, really well. So I'm not afraid to be opinionated and passionate about things I care about, but I'm also not afraid to accept I've lost or I was wrong. And when Sir Jim Ratcliffe did the deal with the Glazers, obviously, I also don't hide away from the things that I've said. And I didn't want that. I famously said, well, I think famously, because I said it. It's not famous. It's not like a bloody big statement. I said, anybody who gets into bed with the Glazers and saves them is an enemy of the football club. And a lot of people hit me with that stick. They said, you can't back Sir Jim Ratcliffe because you said he's an enemy of the club. You can't back Ineos because you said he's an enemy of the club. And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. I said it. And I was actually not talking about Ineos. I was talking about this American investment group that was going to come in and prop the Glazers up. And I said it at the time because I was angry and passionate. I said, anybody that comes in and rescues the Glazers and keeps them in power is an enemy of the football club. And I said it at the time, and I meant it at the time, on the basis that they have destroyed the very core of this football club. They've took us into debt. They've systematically broken us down year on year so that we get worse and worse and worse. They've let one of the greatest football grounds in the world rust and rot to a point where it can't be rescued. Anybody who rescues them for destroying this football club is an enemy of the football club, because I see the Glazers as destroyers of Manchester United. So if somebody comes in and rescues them, they clearly are an enemy of the football club themselves. That was where my stance was. So when Ineos came in and did it, I put my hands up and said, we've lost. I didn't want this. I didn't want this. I would have much preferred Ineos to buy the whole football club. I would have much preferred the Glazers to be gone and somebody to buy the football club. So if Sir Jim Ratcliffe had bought the whole football club and the Glazers had pissed off, I'd have been a lot happier. But on that Christmas Eve, we had the Glazers still in power and Ineos saving them. And I said on that stream, I've lost. I lost. And many of you agreed. You went, we've lost. And I said, I've lost. The battle is over. There's no point in just hoping this works now. There's no point in doing anything else in just other than hoping this works. Hoping I'm wrong. I remember saying it. I said, look, the battle is run. We've lost. And this is the future. So the only thing I can do is hope that I get proved wrong, and hope that there is some plan to remove the Glazers very, very quickly and take Man United back to the top. And that is and was where I was on that Christmas Eve. 18 months later, well, longer than 18 months, because 18 months would have been June. 21 months later, I suppose, coming up for 2 years later, I don't think things are any better. I don't think that things are any better. You could argue they're worse. I mean, that's different shades of shit. But I don't think things are any better. And I'm still waiting to see a plan, you know? And maybe one day they'll prove us wrong. Maybe they will prove us wrong. But at the moment, I just don't see a plan. And honestly, if they're hanging around for the regeneration project, they'll be here for bloody years. And there is a part of me that agrees with some people who are going, I really hope the regeneration project falls through, because then they might all fuck off. Yeah. Look, there are 3 scenarios. We stick with what we've got, Ineos and the Glazers. Somehow Ineos move the Glazers out and take control themselves, or somehow Ineos and the Glazers go and we get someone else. Personally, I'm happy if Ineos get hold of the club, or if they both go and someone else gets hold of the club. I don't like this ownership structure. There are very, very, very few stories from history where 2 sets of people who don't even know each other go into business together and it works out. There's no history between the Glazers and Ineos. Personally, my feeling is that this will all go tits up at some point, but the sooner the better, really, because I don't even mind if Ineos buy the Glazers out. I mean, imagine if the Glazers buy Ineos out. They'll never do that. But I just want to see a plan. I don't really care if they come out and say we're not going to win the league for 5 years, but that's the plan. We'd like to have bought a midfielder in the summer, but we ran out of money because there isn't any money, and we've got to do this, this, and this to try and get money. The risk is to try and get in the Champions League with what we've got, and if we do that, we'll take more risks. But I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what the plan is. I can deal with the truth. I don't know what the problem is with the truth. You know, if the truth is, and this probably is the truth, we spent all our money, we had nothing left to buy a midfielder, and we've gambled that what we've got is good enough to get 5th. And then if we get 5th, we're in the Champions League, hopefully. Then we'll have more money. Then we can buy more players, and we'll gamble again. And hopefully we're going to gamble for 2 or 3 years, and then we'll be back because we'll have the squad, and then we can win. If that's the truth, that's fine. And that probably is the truth. We probably have gambled that we can get by without buying a midfielder because we couldn't afford one, hopefully get back into Europe, and then spend again. Because we clearly ran out of money in the summer, let's be bloody honest. We clearly ran out of money, because why would you not buy a midfielder? But it's the lack of communication. It's keeping fans in the dark like mushrooms and feeding them on shit. We've had that all the time with the Glazers. 20 years we've had that. 20 years the Glazers have treated us like that. And I suppose the big disappointment with Ineos is that I think many of us expected Ineos to come in and be very communicative and build bridges. And building bridges isn't holding a bloody, open day for fans. Building bridges is communicating. Building bridges is the CEO doing a monthly debrief to fans about what's going on. I expected all those things to happen, and it's a shame it hasn't happened. They've basically just followed the Glazer guidebook of running a football club and stayed silent, But look, shows like this are going to be few and far between. I respect and praise everybody that's got involved, because ultimately we won't be able to do these types of shows when the season's up and running again in a week and a half, because everyone will just get locked in on results. But beyond all that, I do think that Amorim is a scapegoat to ownership that stays quiet and doesn't have a clue. We are yet to see that. Isn't a rebuild supposed to start with getting rid of the old and restarting with the new? I think he lost the plot, Mark, says Joseph. And with the debt, are the owners even getting profit, says Mazraoui. And Rishad says, changing the manager isn't the fix. Change the project. It can't be centred around Bruno. 4 managers have tried and failed. Sell Bruno and restart, says Rishad. I've just remembered, actually. Let me just do this, because there was a couple of super chats that came in late this morning, and I ended the show and I'd missed them both, and I don't want to forget again. Let me see if I can do it here. So it would be here. Marlo, you missed my super chat. Yeah, I know that. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. Do you think Bruno's poor leadership, blaming youngsters, etc., is part of the reason young talent fades away, and also part of the reason why we are more a collection of individuals than a team? I think pinning the failure of youth development on Bruno Fernandes is unfair. Ultimately, if I'm running a team and one of my team leaders is damaging the development of staff, then I change that team leader. So whatever anybody thinks about Bruno Fernandes, positive or negative, there is a manager and an ownership that can change any issues if they want them to. And that would be my answer to that. Also, there was another one from, trying to see here. Rex, we did it. Skippy, we did it. Simply Red, Martin. Done that as well. Oh, Christian said, "Hi Mark, hope you and the family are fine. At this time, the players have to pay for the poor final against Spurs, and they really are complaining about that. Poor mentality again, really, really shameful." Yeah, look, at the end of the day, if you're asking these players for their opinion on the state of the club, I would question who were the 11 players that went out in the Europa League final and didn't turn up? Who were the 11 players, 15, 20 players that made us finish 15th last season? Yes, the manager takes some responsibility, but when you cross that white line, it's about you. I know that if I take Gravenberch and stick him in the midfield for Burnley for the next 4 weeks, Burnley's midfield is going to be really good, regardless of how good Burnley are. So I think the players have to take responsibility. I'd never be asking them what they think about the manager, because I'd be more asking them about what their performance is. Why would I ask a player what they think about Ruben Amorim that played in that Brentford game? I'd be asking them what they think about their performance and why I should pay their bloody wages. Billy says, "Do you think Gary Neville will keep his job?" In relation to, I know what you're talking about. I mean, look, this is the United Stand. I do That's Football. Their football content. I saw TalkSport talking about what Gary Neville said about something that's nothing to do with football. At what point did TalkSport become Talk Politics? I mean, I don't do any of that. We were talking about Gary Neville on Sunday. I fully agreed with what he said about players being blame shifters and everything else. I purposely don't do that. I know some of you want to talk about that, but I don't do that. That's not me, and that's not a lot of you. We're here to talk about football. I'm not here to judge or talk about stuff like that. And like anything in that world, a lot of people will agree and a lot of people won't agree. That's why I don't do it. There's plenty for us to disagree about badly in relation to football without me getting involved in that. The thing I disagree with is it's got nothing to do with football. So I don't know why TalkSport and everybody else are jumping on his back, because it's got nothing to do with football. And this is why I don't get involved, whether it's Gary Lineker or anybody else. I just don't get involved in any of that. So I have no comments on it. They ask players because they sell players' shirts, not Amorim's shirts. Probably a fair point, Connor. Probably a fair point. Elon Musk wanted to buy Liverpool, so why can't he try United? You know what? Like, just to end it here. There's probably loads of people that would buy Manchester United, but the big problem is the Glazers never wanted to sell. The Glazers never wanted to sell. The Glazers wanted to lure somebody in to help them build the regeneration project. We did a video on this. It didn't get as many views as it should have done. I mean, it had a couple of 100,000. It should have had a couple of 100 million. The regeneration project, the plans for which were out there in 2017 from Manchester United Football Club to the Trafford Council. And it's exactly the same as the regeneration project now. So Jim Radcliffe didn't get involved in buying Man United for another 6 years. The architects of the regeneration project of Manchester United is not the Mayor of Manchester or Sir Jim Radcliffe or the government. The Glazers had this plan ready in 2017. They just needed somebody to come in and help them get it over the line. End of story. The Glazers were never going to sell the club. They wanted somebody to come in and help them build this regeneration so they can make a load of money. And the evidence is there for that. So people talking about Elon Musk or Qatar or anybody else, that's great if the Glazers want to sell. But they didn't want to sell. They wanted someone to come in and help them. And that's what happened. Thanks everyone for watching. Great show tonight. Really appreciate it. A little bit of an after show as well. We need a left wing back and 2 new midfielders. We can sell Bruno in the winter for 100 million, then get Stiller, Grimaldo, and another cheap midfielder. I'd love to get Stiller, Mika. I would love to get Stiller. Yeah, I'd love to, but we'll have to wait and see. Great show tonight, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, absolute legends. Love these shows in the international break. They're always good on the 8 o'clock shows. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Speak to you in a bit.